What's up, and welcome back to the podcast. Today's another Q&A episode from our Momentum March challenge. I like doing these challenges. I think it's a lot of fun, and my favorite part, honestly, is not even like the actual tasks, right? Hey, like the nutrition component, the movement and mindset, and we kind of switch those up. But the actual questions we get to ask, right? We actually get to go back and forth and discuss important topics based on what the participants actually want to learn about. So these are coaching sessions. So every single week we dive into a different kind of broad topic. The first week we did nutrition, which obviously was the last two Thursdays. We actually put two halves up of the Q&As. And then, of course, now we're going to dive into movement. So that's going to be today as well as next week. And then afterwards, we're going to dive into mindset. Again, for 2 weeks, I like to split them up because there's so many questions. We had a lot of good ones. But I can also imagine that for you, right, the listener, I mean, a full hour of Q&A, like I could imagine that you're maybe not fully kind of like waiting for that. So let's dive in. I don't want to make it too long. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon. So let's dive in. Siv says a nutrition question. Okay, well, fair enough. She says, you tell us to eat a lot of salad and fruit. Different colors. Yes, absolutely. And then she says, I have a stupid mind that tells me that I should not eat a lot of fruit because it messes up my blood sugar and has a lot of calories. What fruit do you recommend and how much per day? It's a really good question. And I know where this is coming from, but we need to understand that added sugar and the sugar in fruit are two completely different things. Um, Not just that, if you think about it, every carbohydrate source is broken down into sugar. So there's something to be said about that too. But let's not forget that with the fruit, when we eat that, we're not just getting sugar. And there are people online who will make it sound like that, to where, yeah, I swear I saw a clip from a podcast where someone was demonizing apples because you might as well just drink Coca-Cola. It's like, well, no, not really. It's not the same thing. You get a lot of fiber, you get a lot of water, right? A lot of micronutrients. And I think we need to understand that it's not just that one nutrient, right? Even kind of goes for some processed foods. It's never like that one component or one compound or ingredient in there. Fruit is never the issue. You know what I mean? Fruit is really isn't. And when it comes to blood sugar, having something like an apple is actually beneficial for your blood sugar versus having something like candy. Because again, you get the fiber, right? We have something filling. And especially when you guys create a plate that has a lot of color, right? And we always talk about the protein, the carbs, fats, and color so that you get everything. That's specifically also for those reasons, right? Because you have a more gradual like release of the nutrients in your bloodstream, so you don't get that crazy spike. That being said, like we're still gonna get a spike, but that's normal. It's supposed to spike, it'll come down again, you know, just not like a crazy spike and a crash. But long story short, Siv, including a lot of fruits and veggies in your diet is going to be key, and it doesn't actually mess up your blood sugar. Now, I would also like to see the rest of nutrition, right, and what the rest of our meals kind of look like, because again, like I said, like the fruits are usually not the issue. And I do know that these days, especially like everything's being demonized and it's also fruit, right, because of the sugar, but we need that stuff. It's actually very good. It's broken down into fructose, which we actually need for our liver, which is also stored there, by the way. So next question, Amy says, and I'll probably shoot some questions over to Alexandra as well once we get into activity. But Amy says, now that I'm eating more salads, is it better to make homemade dressing or bottle dressing? Is that okay? I think both is fine. Um, I like for like the convenience factor, the store bought ones. There is a brand called Garlic Expressions, which is really nice. You guys can get that in the US. Um, you can also make your own dressing. I'm not like too like experienced with that. What about you, Alexandra? Like, have you ever like
I
made your own
love
dressing and stuff?
I love to make my own dressings.
I kind of thought so. That's why I
Um,
asked.
yeah. But I usually just make it really simple. So like I either have some sort of quark for the ones who knows what that is. It's just a type of Greek yogurt. Add some pesto in it and some lemon, and that's just an amazing way of creating an easy dressing. Another way to do is just have some sour cream as well, and put some what's that in English then? Not ketchup, but the other one, the brown one, mustard.
Mustard? Oh
There
yeah.
we go. Yeah,
Yeah.
so just some sour cream and mustard, and so
Yeah.
again some lemon. It's just two really simple ways to create your own dressings. It's not really that hard.
Yeah. Yeah, you can pretty easily throw together like herbs and spices, like use balsamic vinegar. I'm really big on olive oil, like it's a very healthy fat source as well. Mustard, like you said, I mean, you can literally Google like homemade, healthy dressing, and I like to play around with that stuff, right? Like I said, I haven't really done this as much, but yeah, look it up and try it at home. If you like that stuff, great, keep doing it. If you're like, it's a lot of work, and I might as well just get this one, just go with a good brand that has like not too much like added, stuff. Usually like a couple of ingredients that goes a long way. Activity question from Samantha. She says, during a cut season, I still lift, get my steps in each day, and I run for cardio, but I do really feel tired because I'm not eating as much, which is the downside of cutting, right? Like as we go for fat loss, eventually that energy kind of goes down. But let's see. Um, she says, I know that is normal, but should I keep pushing my workouts or should I maybe not lift as heavy or take more rest days during that cut season when I'm feeling tired? I'm going to say this. So when we're talking high intensity training, right? Really like hit workouts, like, if we usually kind of go 5 times a week or something, we could take that down. I feel like there's already a lot of stress on the body just from cutting, right? Um, Maybe going for like a walk instead of one of those workouts, that could work. Now, I know as well that you don't necessarily do hits. So when it comes to your weightlifting, I would keep that in because what we're trying to do is hold on to as much muscle as possible, which we already do by eating a high protein diet. But that training is going to be key too. Not just that, I do also know that you recently started cutting. And for that reason, I feel like in the beginning, you can still make progress. So when it comes to your weights, try to still kind of push. But eventually, once you go a little bit further into the cuts, like your performance will drop a little bit, but try to keep that in for sure. And then when it comes to the cardio and your steps, my main tip here would be try to standardize what you're doing and then adjust from there. I will say though, I am a big fan of at least having like 2 full rest days during a cut, especially. That's just from a stress standpoint.
I can also add in at least two things there as well. Often during a cut, we're often focusing on the nutrition part of the picture. But if you don't have as much nutrients available or calories available, it's even more important to consider other basics like sleep. So make sure to have proper sleep, make sure to do your recovery days properly, and also just listen to your body a little bit more that you would normally do. And then again, also just disconnect sometimes from social stimuli because that's also a big one that kind of takes energy. And if you're also exercising quite high intensity and there's a lot of sweating, or in general, there's just a lot of volume, try to add in some extra salts as well. And just not to be, because a lot of us can feel more dehydrated as well when we decrease our foods, because a lot of our foods also contain a lot of water. And if we're not hydrated enough, we feel tired. So that might also be a little tip just to throw in.
That's a good one. I personally noticed that I was feeling more fatigued. I talked to my coach, and he's like, "Are you taking a like electrolyte?" And I was like, "Actually, no, not recently." So I reintroduced that, and I do feel better. So that's actually a really good one that we sometimes skip. Nice, cool. Let's see. We have a lot of questions. Sorry, photos, not questions. We have strength training, meals, skiing, more meals. Okay, here we go. Karina says. Activity question. If I have to do a late workout, how long should I rest before going to sleep? I know the body is exposed to a lot of stress during and after training sessions, and that that has consequences in the form of poor sleep quality, which I certainly do not want. And doesn't matter what you train late at night. You want to take this one?
I can take this one. Yeah, absolutely. For that, I find that the real answer kind of varies person to person. But in general, if you're going to do exercise, you don't want to do like a middle top class exercise session like strength training, especially because that's just fires up your nervous system. You kind of like increase focus, you increase memory, you kind of switch your like all your buttons on. So that gives your body a signal that you're not supposed to go to rest yet, you're not supposed to go to sleep yet. So you might stay up for another hour or two, maybe three, before you actually manage to sleep because you just feel wired. Um, if you try to do like a quite hard workout where you actually like really push yourself to the edge, then your body actually just feels so tired that it might just go to sleep. But again, there's also people who can't really go to sleep after a hard workout. So in general, for like my biggest advice, I wouldn't necessarily work out. For me, I struggle to sleep if I work out after 6 p.m. But again, for my partner, he can do a late workout until 8 p.m. and he still sleeps okay by 10. So I think this is just kind of a try and failure in terms of your own to figure out how late you can train. But in general, I would consider for most people, at least they spend more than maybe like 2 or 3 hours before they can actually go to sleep after a workout.
Yeah.
And then there's also factors like how much caffeine you've had, how much stress in general as well. That will also, of course, affect your sleep. But in general, for exercise, that's at least my experience.
Yeah, I mean, there is also like a just a schedule component to that question, you know. Um, like is it like are we always like forced to do it because we're busy during the day? There's like multiple factors there, so like it's a big it depends question. But yeah, like if you do go in the evening, I would say like do as much as you can to wind down, right? Like we should be doing that anyway, but like extra, you know, really try to like calm down. Um, have a meal afterwards. The carbs can actually, you know, if you have something with carbs, you can bring down the cortisol a little bit. Um, yeah, that's a big one. And then taking like things like magnesium and stuff too. But I would say for me, sometimes just because of schedule, like, you know, like today I'll be training like later, you know, actually after this call. So it's not optimal. I try not to do it. Usually I go like maybe 5 or 6 or something. And it's just again schedule, but I'll still fall asleep. It's just not optimal, right? And it's probably going to impact, you know, sleep quality. So there's a lot of kind of like sides to that question. Um, but last point, because she also said it doesn't matter what you train late at night. I would say, I mean, I would definitely stay away if it's like late at night. I wouldn't do any like hit or cardio, like high intensity stuff, because that's the most stressful. That's going to trigger that, you know, stress response as much more than the rest. Let me see. Tammy says, activity question. I prefer to work out first thing in the morning. Is it better to work out on an empty stomach or to eat a small meal beforehand? Yes, it's better to eat beforehand. Um, so a fueled body is gonna just function better. You're gonna feel better. This even goes into maybe a little bit of like, you know, injury prevention. You definitely want to hydrate as well. But I know there's a lot of hype around fasting and like fasted workouts. Um, but that's actually not necessary at all. When it comes to training in the morning, try to get something at least, I would say. So you want to prioritize carbs here. It's okay to go with something small. And either way, most of your training is going to be fueled through glycogen, which is right stored sugar in your muscles. And that happens, you know, over the course of like 24 hours, sometimes longer. So either way, if you think about it, like your dinner from like the last night is probably mostly going to fuel your training anyway, but having a little extra is probably important. And if you want to get specific, like a 3-to-1 ratio from carbs to protein is optimal, and then just keeps fats nice and low because that would slow down digestion, and we don't want that. Um, I'm a big fan of maybe like a piece of fruit and like a scoop of protein, for example, or maybe even like a smoothie or something, or maybe like a protein yogurt. but I would not recommend going in without any extra fuel in the system. And then afterwards, of course, you can save the real actual breakfast for later, but try to have something beforehand. Now, let me see real quick. Jenny has a really good question. Should we avoid carbs from bread? No. It's cool to have bread. Um, the only time I would recommend people to avoid it, right, would be if there's a gluten sensitivity, which is usually not even the gluten that is the issue, but the gut health, which I'm diving into a lot more now. But it's like usually there's an underlying reason why we do not tolerate gluten. And there are some cases too, by the way, where again, it will be better to cut it out, unfortunately. But then there's still going to be alternatives for that. For most people, though, right, assuming like just generally like we're healthy, we're trying to eat, mostly whole food kind of based diet, we can absolutely include bread. It's totally fine. A lot of good fiber, right? Um, and I kind of wonder where it comes from as well, because it's been around, like demonizing bread. It's been a thing for a long time, and there's actually just no reason to. There will be one more scenario where I would say maybe it's good to focus more on other foods. And that's maybe if we're deep down in deficit and we're dieting, hey, maybe let's focus more on things like boiled potatoes, which are going to be more filling. That would be my only thing, really. And just going big on like the salads and stuff. But like, I wouldn't say there's a reason to avoid it at all, unless there is a gut issue and some like autoimmune stuff as well, which would go beyond a challenge, general Q&A. Let me see. Debbie says, what are some good post-workout snacks? What are your favorites, Alexandra?
I have a lot of them. But I think my favorite at the moment has to be some sort of like Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, some decent fruits, nuts, seeds, and some oats or muesli just to fire things up. But in general as well, if I do a really hard workout, I'm really struggling to eat afterwards. So then I often make a shake just to get things down. And for that, I use just protein powder and some cottage cheese, often banana and some cacao powder with some peanut butter and banana. That's just, yeah, that's also a brilliant one. So I think it's just important to make sure that you get enough proteins and some carbs, and then throw in some healthy fats if you need to. But general prioritize fat, no, prioritize protein and carbs, and make sure that it's something that you are managing to eat if you have had a really hard session. Because, like I said, I am at least the one who's if I had a really hard session, I really struggle to eat. So make a smoothie that you can put so much into that. So that's maybe like my top one recommendation, and then maybe have a proper meal afterwards.
Yeah. I think also, by the way, guys, like when we're talking post-workout, it doesn't have to be like 10 seconds after training, by the way, That's another big misconception where it's like, well, we have to get it in right away. So no, you can wait. Like even if it's like let's give you like a 2 hour window. It's probably good to eat within 2 hours after training because that's a very important window to get some fuel back in. Um, but yeah, give yourself a little bit of time to get back into that rest and digest state, right? We talked about winding down. Even there too, you can do breathing exercises, anything we can do to kind of, get back into that parasympathetic state and then have that meal because you're likely going to be feeling much better to actually eat, like you said, right? After a little while instead of like jumping right in. Like I also wouldn't like feel like that. Lisa says, I learned so much from you the last mini challenge. The main thing that stuck out to me was that fat loss and muscle gain should be two different phases. I want to do both. And before the past mini challenge, I thought you could do both of them at the same time. So, does the fat loss need to come first? And if I'm lifting weights now, does that mean it's harder to lose the weight? Great questions. So let me actually start at the very end. So the weightlifting isn't necessarily going to impact your weight loss. This is where we need to also understand the difference between fat loss and weight loss. But we even just need to like separate the activity part, for the most part at least, from the weight loss. Yes, we're going to be burning calories, but it's not the main driver of that. And we do that for a different reason, right? Alexandra talked about it just now. It's like, hey, we even like lift weights and just exercise for general health, for mental health, right? We want to build the muscle. It's great for bone density. We build our fitness. Like that's why we exercise, not for the weight loss. So you can keep doing that. And I actually recommend you doing so because you're going to build the muscle, especially because you're kind of new. Um, or at least, maintain muscle as much as possible. And that's the goal. Because now if we go into fat loss, you can hold on to the muscle you have and you just focus on the fat loss. But what comes first just really depends on the person. I will say this, there's likely a benefit for most people. I'm saying most, not everyone. And we can talk about this more, Lisa, if you want. But there's probably benefit to first at least spending some time feeding up the body, getting into a good routine, getting a lot of nutrients in, building some muscle, feeding your metabolism, just being in a good spot. Because what I see in these kind of challenges, and most people I talk to, like we're either trying to lose weight and we don't manage, or we're kind of like not even eating enough for maintenance, right? And that's something we got to fix. And that's why, I mean, that's what Alexandra also does with her clients. Like we both do this. It's like, hey, when we get started, let's actually fuel your body. Let's actually get you, building some muscle, like actually eating enough, feeling good, and then getting ready and going into fat loss. But what needs to come first is an individual situation. Um, if Let me put it this way, if you have more body fat to lose and you want to build muscle, I would probably focus on the fat loss most and then afterwards just slowly build up. Um, for people who want to lose a little bit of body fat, but they also want to build muscle, okay, maybe we start with building muscle and then we just do one cut to kind of reveal that. But it depends. It's a big it depends question. For most of the clients I've worked with who came to us for better body composition, we usually focus on, like I said, there's a little bit of a period where we fuel and then we go into fat loss. And later on, we can get into muscle gain. But we could talk about this more. Johanna says, question for the week. Should you rather have 2 workouts a day and a rest day or train every day? You want to take this one, Alexandra?
I would do either. Yeah, I can take that one. But yeah, like I said, if it was up to me, I don't think I would do any of these options, to be fair. Because I think 2 workouts a day takes a lot of time, but it also, I don't know, takes away both the intensity and the quality of the sessions if you're gonna have 2 workouts a day. Of course, unless you're a top athlete, then you might have the time and space to do that. And working out every day is not sustainable. Your body builds up during the recovery phase when you're not working out. So you have to take those days off. Some days, of course, you can do maybe work out 5 times a week. That's fine, but have at least 2 rest days. It's not sustainable to just keep going, push on the gas, because your body won't be able to cope with the load, and you're just going to end up feeling tired and more weak as the day goes by.
Yeah. Yeah, I fully agree 100%. It's especially for most, because there is a time and place for twice a day. For some people in a shorter season, if they're at a very high level athlete, and most people that's not going to be the case. And we often think that more is better, but it really isn't. Right? Like you said, like you're not going to get great activity in because we're just not, we're not really fueled, like we're still tired, we're just breaking down over time. Um, I've seen this happen, multiple times, and I experienced myself as well. Um, Especially when I was a CrossFit coach, it's that go-go mentality, and people want to do it twice a day, and people want to do every single day. And guess what happens? Like you're gonna burn out mentally, you're gonna get sick because your immune system is at some point gonna give up, or you get injured, or it's a combination of all three, right? That's what I had. Our old my past co-host of the podcast, Christine, She was a CrossFit athlete at like very high level, like, points away from the CrossFit games, blew out both, both shoulders, just got injured, just completely couldn't train anymore. And there was more like hormonal stuff and, gut stuff going on as well. But like, because of that reason, right? Doing too much training, not enough recovery, not enough fuel, not enough sleep, and it just all adds up. So yeah, absolutely. Rest days, super important. Like that's when you build the muscle. Like otherwise, you literally get worse, right? And you'll get better performance and better results if you actually take that rest.